he's always been a huge influence on me in my work, because even he's touched on that genre. It's like, with The Man Who Fell to Earth, he was in sci-fi. With The Hunger, he touched on horror and vampire films. And then with one of my favorite films, I have so many, it was my audience who loves his film, is Labyrinth. Then he gets into the kind of fantasy genre and everything, also blending his music in with the fantasy film, which just seems to be, it just seems to gain more of an audience as time goes by, that movie.
Oh yeah. Well, again, I think it's because society has changed and they're more open. And again, some of those movies were just just way ahead of their time, and but then I am so proud that they were willing to make the movie back then, because if those type of movies weren't made, I don't think we'd be where we're at today.
You're very right. I mean, it's always those people at the front edge, the pioneers that go out and just do their own thing, and the public thoughts on that. So other people's thoughts on that, they're the naysayers, be damned, because they're going to go out and they're going to create that art, and they're going to make something new and different and do it in a way and push it out there. And that, you take a lot of arrows when you're in front of that, and you also get a lot of blowback from that, but you will gain, an audience from that, because, if you can make it and get it out there in front of those people, they'll come along for that ride, you know?
Yeah.
And so I'm like you. I'm thankful for all of those artists always that have always pushed people forward like that, like Bowie and others. I mean, there's a magician illusionist a long, long time ago, started about the same time Copperfield did, that so many people don't really remember now as much. But you remember, he was a Canadian, Doug Henning. And he was kind of the hippie magician. And he was the first guy I got to look at that wasn't that traditional magician, that was all this, just, a tuxedo and cheesy entertainment and stuff. I mean, Doug took it to a place, with his persona. It was fantasy, and it was a light fantasy. It's all puppies and rainbows. Mine is vampires and gargoyles and castles, things like that. But he was the first guy I saw. He's like, oh, well, he's got long hair and he's wearing anything but, some, formal tux or something like that, or a suit. It was the first time you got to see magic. At least that's the first guy I remember seeing, doing illusion and magic that was, just so far outside of the box, stylistically. And that was one of the first clues. And I was like, okay, if there are people like that you can just, you can take this wherever you want it then. And so it's like that. It's like, and Bowie and things like that, going out there with Ziggy and so many other things, so many artists, after that, I can't even count, but certainly he was a huge influence in terms of style. And then even in terms of, even watching what he did, where he would cross over from his music career into acting, and that inspired me as well. It's like when I had an opportunity, when directors came to me and said, we like your look, we want to be in a horror film, I jumped in and said yes.
Oh, wow. What was the first movie?
Glad I did.
What was the first movie you did?
My very first movie is a movie called The Item, written and directed by Dan Clark. He's out in L.A., and Dan and I were old friends in Chicago. We were both from, and we used to make crazy cable television shows here. We had this weird cult show that aired out here called The Realm Show and stuff. It was all very, it was very provocative. It was the first time I actually hosted things, and I performed in it. But it went so far into pop culture and weird underground culture and 80s culture, because it came out in the mid 80s, and that thing, was just infamous, for people who knew about it. And so later he gets out to LA and he makes his first film. And the film's called The Item. It actually made history. It went to Sundance, and it's the very first digitally made movie to be accepted into Sundance. So it made a bit of history that way. And after that, it played in some other festivals around the world, and then got a worldwide release on video after that. And The Item is, if you're looking for it, and if you like weird movies, I loved it because I got to be in a movie that I'm like, if I saw this out in the market, I would watch this thing because it's just the kind of weird movie that appeals to me. And it's a bit of everything. It's the people. Here's how the people at Sundance described it when they ran our screenings. They said, and I quote them, "It's like Quentin Tarantino on acid."
Oh,
That's what they said about the item.
So, okay, now since
it is that. It's definitely that.
Okay, now it's out. We can talk about it. What was the plot behind the movie? What was it about? And what did you do in the movie?
I played Dr. Odie, and that's where the movie kind of begins. It's a story that revolves around these four criminals, and there's a lot of gunplay and there's a lot of violence. Thus the Tarantino comparisons, but in ways it goes further than a Tarantino movie would go in a lot of different ways, stylistically certainly. But it starts with these four criminals in the desert, and they meet this strange doctor, and I played Dr. Odie. And at the time, I have a shaved head now, and it's more of kind of the Anton LaVey look for my show, which fits it very nicely. But at the time, it was before I shaved my head, and I had very long blonde hair. Kind of looked like Iggy Pop with the long blonde hair at the time. And they wanted to, at first it was written for kind of a 50-something, lab coat kind of doctor. And then they said, we want to do something different with it. And that's when they came to me and said, you want to be in the horror film because we want somebody who's really, more eccentric and outside of the box. And I jumped at the chance. And then, so Dr. Odie's in this silver suit and everything and round glasses, and he's out in the desert and he sells them this box, which contains this creature. And they're all freaked out because, I'm telling them they have to take care of it, and things go terribly wrong in the desert, and gunfire and weirdness ensue, and then they're off to the races. And the creature has an effect on the people who witness it. And I don't want to say more than that because I don't want to give it all away, but it winds up affecting the band of criminals, and it takes you on a hell of a ride.
No, question. How big a box was it?
It's about the size of a very large cooler. Those coolers that are large enough that you have to have like a handle on the little rollers on the back?
Okay.
One of those very large coolers.
Okay.
Kind of looks like that.
Now I know how big the monster is.
There you go. Yeah, because he fits in. Well, it fits inside that box.
Oh wow!
And it has this support system, and it winds up waking up. They inadvertently wake up the creature who's kind of in stasis, and then all hell breaks loose.
Scary. And
it's scary monsters, absolutely.
So what year did that come out?
That came out, we went to Sundance with it in 99, and it finally got its worldwide video release in 2001. So it's been a few years ago now.
Okay.
And that was my first film. And it was quite a kick for my first film to go all the way to Sundance. And I'm like, oh, this is great. I like this. Let's do more of this.
Oh, wow. And, okay, from there, I mean, how many movies have you been in, just out of curiosity?
Probably about 20 overall, and I mean you can go on my IMDb and see a large degree of them. A few of those projects never came to fruition and got out into the market and things like that because they were smaller, quirkier indie films and things. But a lot of them did. All my work with John Lechago you can see, and so many others. There's another movie that's out also on Amazon right now. I think it's part of Prime as well, called Arkham Sanitarium Soul Eater. And I play a quirky. I have a smaller role in that, and I play this quirky part in that of the kind of facility director in that. And that is a really it's done by Julian Grant, who's a really cool director, and he made a film. He wrote and directed that. It's about it kind of takes on the found footage genre, and it makes fun of that. So it's got kind of a sense of humor. And in doing that and telling that, it is very much steeped in Lovecraftian legend and lore, and gets into all of the Lovecraft genre there. So it's really fascinating to see this, and you'd like it. It's this band of paranormal investigators that go into this facility to investigate this, Cthulhu cult, goings on. and this paranormal activity that surrounded that. And then, and again, all hell breaks loose. And then I show up.
Not to save the day, I take it.
Very much not. No, very much not. Sometimes I play heroes. I play characters like that. They're kind of the anti-heroes and stuff. A lot of times I'm playing the big bad, and in this case, I'm playing one of those not so friendly characters.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, what hospital was that now? No, but wow. And then let's move on to some other movies you have done.
Absolutely. Well, one of my other favorites is the ones I mentioned that I've done with John LaChaga, who's a writer-director out of L.A., and he's done so many movies. Most recently, he's done a lot of the Killjoy movies, like the last 3 Killjoy movies for Full Moon, and he has made a bunch of his own as well. Blood Gnomes, a good one. That's where that was my first one with him. But my favorite, and this one I star in, is called Magus, and that is really interesting. Great special effects, really well done movie. And if it's out there, you can find it. Go find it. It was streaming for a while. I think on Amazon as well. You can find the DVD out there in different places. I think even Netflix has the DVD you can rent it from and everything there. I'm not sure if it's streaming on that platform though. But Magus is really cool. It's about the Magus Furnos that I play in this. There's this secret underground world of people who are what they call, kind of like wizards, magicians. But what they are in essence is these are people who have skills where they can manipulate energy to do different things, including, shooting energy at each other to fight with it and things like that. So the secret world of wizards, of magicians, he has been wronged, and he breaks out of a mental facility and goes out to go start offing, start killing all of these other magic users so he can take over as their new, kind of supernatural supreme leader. And then, others come to challenge him within that. And that's kind of the basic storyline to Magus. And the effects are amazing. It won awards for its special effects at the Chicago Horror Film Festival. And, it's got a great cast. The acting's very solid. It's really good for an indie film. You'll love it if you like things like that, because that crosses kind of a little more. It's kind of horror fantasy, but it gets it's also many people put it in the sci-fi category because of the way the special effects look when they're using the magic and the manipulating the energy around them and through their bodies and things like that. And it's just got a great look. It's a really solid storyline. And you'll like it. You'll like Magus if you like that kind of fantasy horror film. That's a great movie.
Yeah, it sounds like it. I can't.
It's really fun. Yeah.
There was a movie that it was done out of. Well, it's supposed to be in the cemetery, and then it was underground, and it was different levels of demons and stuff like that. I can't think of the name of the movie.
Really cool. Yeah. I'd love to see that.
And it was really cool because this one person, actually stumbled into it accidentally, and it just involved where he became demonetized. And, again, I think that was probably made around the late 1990s. But I really are into those type of movies. I mean, they're kind of like awesome and cool.
Oh yeah, that's the stuff I always loved, that I always watched. I mean, and I was absolutely thrilled when I got a chance to be in them. I mean, I had studied theater and acting in college for my stage show to make it better, because I knew that I wanted those skills to make a better theatrical experience out of the illusions and things I was doing. And when it came around that I had created this look and this persona that I have now. And that directors then came to me and said, hey, we really love, what you're doing and with the show and with your look. Do you want to be in a horror film? I had some acting skills and everything to allow me to be able to make that transition and go to that place. So I was just thrilled because, it just totally geeked me out. It's like being in a comic book geeked me out, but getting to be in horror films, the kind of stuff that I always would go and seek out and watch myself the kind of films that you like. I was just totally geeked out that I now had the chance to go and act